The boys and Donna all assure Lily that Bloody Mary didn't kill her dad, even though Bloody Mary totally killed her dad. So add gaslighting to the trauma of this whole experience of her dad dying, I guess.
You're listening to the Supernatural Opinions Podcast. Hi, I'm KJ. My pronouns are she, her, and this is the podcast where I recap the show Supernatural with my fellow fans and we discuss our supernatural opinions.
And here to help me do that are my guests of the week, Meredith, Francis, and Jordan. It is a full house this week. Meredith and Francis were both here last week. But how about each of you introduce yourselves again? Meredith, you can start.
All right. I'm Meredith, and you probably know me by now. My pronouns are she and her.
And Francis?
I'm Francis, and I was here last week, so you should know me by now. But I go by she and her.
And first-time guest Jordan, how about you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Hi there, my name is Jordan. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm a musician and actor, and I love Supernatural, along with every other series and TV show that's out there. You can find me on TikTok at PsychicChick21.
We're gonna get along famously.
Yes.
And this week's episode will contain spoilers for this episode and may reference previous episodes, but we're going to try not to contain any spoilers for later episodes of Supernatural. This week's episode is titled Bloody Mary, and that's a reference to the very popular ritual where you speak Bloody Mary's name into a mirror and she appears. We're going to talk a lot more about this in our mythology section and in the recap. But I think everybody did this or knew someone who did this when they were kids. I definitely remember people doing this in the school bathrooms, and it scared me, even during my ghost phase.
I was too terrified to do it.
Oh, it's terrifying.
Same.
You were all the people who survived.
Like, growing up in a religious household, that's one of the things they drill into you. Do not mess with the spirit world.
Fair enough. Honestly, I did not grow up in a religious household, but I was still afraid to do it.
You're wise.
That fear did not last. I was going to tell this later, but you know what? It fits here now, so... While I was, doing notes, I was like, what if, for, a cold open on this episode, I record myself doing this? And then I went, that's how you die, girl.
And then you get evidence of it for the Winchesters.
I'm a white woman, and, if you haven't seen my TikTok, I'm white. And every horror movie has dozens of white women who do dumb things. They go places they aren't supposed to go. They touch things they aren't supposed to touch. They do things they aren't supposed to do, and they pay the price. But somehow I haven't learned from any of those things. Because I was like, what if I did this? For the aesthetic.
What if I be my own stereotype?
And so I decided I wasn't going to do that.
Probably a good call.
And then that also got me thinking, because when they were filming this episode, they must have had the actors doing this, for multiple takes in a row.
Interesting.
Do you think that they were scared?
Probably.
I would be scared.
I would think initially, but after the 40th time, you're like, if it's gonna come, it's gonna get me. At this point, I've got to do another take.
Those first couple must have been really nerve-wracking, though. Oh my god!
At this point, if it kills me, I deserve it.
I can't imagine filming.
Getting that paycheck though.
Yeah. But, the girl who plays the daughter, I already forgot her name. I'm sure it's in my notes somewhere. I think her name's Lily.
Yeah.
The little one. Oh my god. She's the first one to do it. I don't know if they would have filmed her scenes first or not, but, oh my god, I can't imagine her, doing this a bunch of times in front of a mirror and just, do it again.
She must have been a legend at school.
Honestly. But before we get that far into the recap, let's talk about who wrote and directed this episode. This week's episode was written by Eric Kripke and Ron Milbauer and Terry Hughes Burton, and it was directed by Peter Ellis. We talked about Ron Milbauer and Terry Hughes Burton in previous episodes. This kind of trio wrote together on episode 2, Wendigo. So that's the team that we're working with. Same crew.
They can make creepy crap.
Oh yeah. They're good on the scary ones, I have to say. Peter Ellis has directed in credits that go all the way back to the 1970s. Supernatural is actually one of his more recent projects. But some of his other work include an episode of Smallville, Criminal Minds, 10 episodes of Pensacola, Wings of Gold, and 6 episodes of Highlander. His other Supernatural episode is another one that's upcoming this season, The Benders, which is another pretty scary one. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's a great crew on the writing and directing team this week. And I guess we should just get into the recap. But we're starting in Toledo, Ohio, with a group of girls playing Truth or Dare, which common thing for girls of this age. One girl says that she heard that Bloody Mary was a car crash victim. The other girl says that it doesn't matter who Bloody Mary is, and I agree. It doesn't matter, because the long and short of it is that Bloody Mary's gonna come scratch out your eyes. Lily, I believe it's Lily, conveniently doesn't know who Bloody Mary is, so they can get exposition out of this scene. But basically, if you say Bloody Mary 3 times in front of a mirror, she appears and scratches your eyes out, which is the story that I heard growing up, so.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
Lily looks to me a little bit like a baby Anna Kendrick. But she's very scared and knows that this is a bad idea. Even as she's, like, going into the bathroom. She knows it's not good.
Smart kid.
But she does it anyway. And her friends, like, bang on the door to scare her, which annoys her dad. Honestly, that's something kids do. I'm sure that my friends did that at a sleepover once. Dad is then seen talking, I wrote talking in my notes. He was walking in the upstairs of their house where these people have so many mirrors in their home. He deserves to die for the number of mirrors he has on the walls of his home. We see him walk by 3 other mirrors before he stands in front of a 4th mirror. That kills him. 3 other mirrors he passes. And that's just upstairs. There's a mirror downstairs, which is where Lily actually said it, and, like, who knows how many other mirrors downstairs. That's too many.
They just really like their faces. They're just confident people.
Lily's sister comes home late from her curfew and unfortunately stumbles across the bloody remains of her father, which I feel really bad about. But, like, honestly, good thing that she did, or else Lily and her friends probably would have. And they're, like, young.
They're gonna need some therapy after that.
Everybody's gonna need therapy. I'm sure they came running when Donna screamed. Like, she freaked out, obviously, at finding her father, like, dead and bloody on the floor. So I'm sure that they ran and saw everything anyways, but, like...
Weren't we, like, seeing something creepy in the mirrors, or is that later?
Oh, yeah, we were. I was just thrown off by how many mirrors there were. There's, like, a girl. There's, like, a scary-looking ghost girl in the mirror. She doesn't look, honestly, all that different from the ghost of Constance Welch in the pilot.
I was thinking the same thing.
She's just got her hair over her face.
Yeah. Honestly, not too different.
Constance needed to see.
Ring-esque.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Ring.
And then she's, like, in the mirror, and then the dad's eyes start bleeding, and he dies.
So.
Yeah, we flip to Sam, who's having a dream about Jess's death. Dean wakes him up, but they are not talking about it.
It's not what we do here.
Sam is not in the mood to talk about anything.
Chick flick moments.
No, none. Dean has found the obituary for the dad in the paper. I never wrote down the dad's name, so he's just the dad.
Victim number 1.
I think his last name's Shoemaker, but the obituary has piqued their interest, so they go to the morgue. I think this might be the first time we're in a morgue in the show, and they're pretending to be, like, medical students, but Sam just, like, gives up when the ruse, like, isn't getting them in and just bribes the desk guy, and Dean's annoyed because he won that money in a poker game.
They are so lucky, the desk guy.
Yeah, gambling. There was gambling happening. It was hard-earned.
It's not like he earned it.
No, they are so lucky the desk guy had loose morals.
I mean, yeah, he could have gotten in big trouble, honestly. Like, that's a suspicious death, even if they are putting it down to, like, a medical thing. It's still a suspicious death, and the coroner didn't seem to be done with it. And, yeah, that's not allowed. The dad's eyes are liquefied, and the doctor's, it's not really the doctor, it's the desk guy, says that the skull was filled with blood, and it was maybe a stroke or an aneurysm, but he hadn't ever seen exploding eyeballs before, so... Sam pays the guy more money for the police report, because this guy is just, like, giving shit out. And they arrive at the house during some sort of wake, which is poor timing. They really could have waited until everybody went home. The family has been through a lot already this week, but they just, like, walk in.
Well, sensitivity is their middle name.
The big sister's name is Donna, and Sam whispers at her. Sam gets heavy-handed with the whispering this episode. I don't know if it's just that Jared hadn't, like, his voice hadn't really dropped very much yet, and so, like, that was the only way he knew to, like, sound concerned was to just make it, just like, loudly whisper. That's
honestly, that sounds like something a 22-year-old boy would do, though, so it works.
But anytime that there's a woman in distress, like, Sam just is whispering at her. And I haven't this episode in a while, so I was really confused as to why we see Donna's friend Charlie, and her face made me inhale like I was supposed to hate her. I had like a I don't like that person response. But then I recognized her as Christy Jenkins from season 8 of Charmed, which is one of my comfort shows.
Cool.
So if I call Charlie Christy by accident, it's because she plays a person named Christy in Charmed. And
the names are sort of similar.
They're sort of similar, and they have the exact same face because they're played by the same person. Anyway, Lily volunteers the whole story of the sleepover, and I think I hate Sam whispering more at a preteen girl than I do when he does it to just general older women. It's somehow worse when he does it to a child, but the boys and Donna all assure Lily that Bloody Mary didn't kill her dad, even though Bloody Mary totally killed her dad. So add gaslighting to the trauma of this whole experience of her dad dying, I guess.
Unintentional gaslighting.
Unintentional gaslighting, because they're like, no, it wasn't Bloody Mary. It was totally Bloody Mary. You were definitely right, girl.
It's not your fault, but it's your fault.
Yeah, definitely accidentally your fault.
You summoned her, but she made her own decisions.
I mean, based on what we find out Bloody Mary's criteria are for killing, not totally Lily's fault. Lily's dad would have been fine if he hadn't also been kind of a not great past. I don't want to say he's a bad person, but he had a big secret in his past that contributed. It was a contributing factor.
Well, Anyway,
Sam and Dean go upstairs to witness the horrific number of mirrors in the house for themselves. Sam sounds slightly excited about the fact that it might be Bloody Mary, and Dean tries to kill Sam by tricking him into saying in front of the mirror that the dad just, died in front of him. He's kind of joking, but, literally, if Sam had said it one more time, Sam probably would have just died right there, so,
there are still bloodstains on the floor.
Yeah, it's not great for these two girls that are stuck living in this house that there's still bloodstains on this floor, and also Dean just almost accidentally murdered Sam right out of the gate in episode 5, so... Charlie calls them out on their weirdness, and so they tell her that they're looking into the death so that it doesn't happen to anyone else, and Sam gives her a card in case she sees anything strange, and thank God he does, because she needs help later in this episode, and...
Yeah.
Only the kind that Sam and Dean provide. Anybody who has a regular job would not have been helpful. Anyone that would have been called in this situation, the police or a psychiatric hospital, none of those people would have helped her in the way she needed. So thank God Sam had business cards on hand. Sam is having a hard time even starting to do research because the myth of Bloody Mary is old and widespread, and the issue of people actually dying seems to be isolated to this incident.
I feel his pain.
Added bonus, all the computers in the library out of order. Remember when we need to go to the library to access a computer?
Well, at least I can just do this research at home.
Yeah, I did all of my research from my own bed. But this was 2005, so... They needed to go to the whole library to access the internet and a computer. And then Charlie is driving and is on the phone with Jill, who says Bloody Mary 3 times in the mirror to mess with her, and then hangs up. And you guessed it, Bloody Mary takes her right the F out.
Her reflection looks exactly like her, like reflections should, except it's talking back to her, which is rude.
Yeah, and scary.
Yeah, and it's saying, you did it, you killed that boy, or something.
I'm not sure what would be more scary. Seeing something behind you in a mirror that's not there when you turn around, or if your reflection does something that you didn't just do.
And it's giving you this menacing look.
It's worse when it starts telling you that you killed someone and then your eyes start bleeding.
It's not great.
What I'm more mad about than any of that is that Amazon Prime was too cheap to pay Fall Out Boy, so instead of the song Sugar We're Going Down, which I love, this scene was swapped out for Never Forget by State of Man.
What? They had Fall Out Boy?
Yeah.
I am so mad.
What?
This episode was really bad for the streaming services. I'm gonna need to buy the DVDs, honestly.
I have the DVDs.
I'm gonna have to buy the full box set.
Yeah.
It's totally worth it.
Because every time I'm watching episodes, I have to look now to see what songs were switched out, and more often than not, it just makes me mad because the songs that were switched out were good, which is why they cost a lot of money. They're well-known songs, and they're put in with songs. Some of the songs are good that they put in, but it's just annoying.
Yeah, especially because I could have had Fall Out Boy.
Yeah, I love Fall Out Boy. Sam is having the nightmare again, but he is still not talking about it. And then my next note just says Dean has found nothing.
So I guess he found nothing.
Luckily or unluckily, Charlie calls to tell them about Jill dying. I mean, unlucky for Jill, but lucky for Sam and Dean that they have a second death to go off of.
Sucks to be Jill.
Yeah, really bad for Jill. Charlie says that she must be insane, and Dean tells her she's not, and she says that she doesn't know if that makes her feel better or worse. And I'm like, yeah, that's an appropriate reaction to have.
Yeah, both options really suck.
Really bad. Charlie lets them into Jill's room without Jill's poor family knowing. I can only imagine what would have happened if Jill's mom had, like, opened the door to, like, check on Charlie and, like, seen these two strange grown men in her